Good afternoon, sports fans. Welcome to another of the new Scooby Doo reviews on the JayBee Milly channel. I am JB, and of course, with me is Milly.
Hi.
We have Dan,
Hi.
and we have Sophie.
Hey.
So this is the first review in a while, and I was thinking to myself, maybe we can just not do any more. Maybe we could even sack off the interviews. But then I had a good long look in the mirror, and I'm like, you know what? There's one thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. It's the dynamic that we have here with the core four, which is something that I am really, really happy about. So we are back. I don't know when the next one is, but I'm happy for this one. And let me just do a quick shout out to Dan's t-shirt because that is just the most awesome thing to wear for this review. So I tried. I did like a Scooby Doo Doctor Who one because aliens, but I got outshone in the first few seconds. But it's amazing. So Millie, I think I've prattled on enough. So
Yeah, so I guess to start things off, do you want to do the plot summary that you did in the car yesterday?
no, I'm not doing that. No. Okay, okay, so in my infinite wisdom, I tried to convince Millie that we did not need to rewatch the Alien Invaders. So I then proceeded to say, okay, so we start off, you can see a load of planets. There's spooky alien music going, "Ooh, ooh, ooh." Like I just went off on. I tried to reenact the whole
You wanted to
movie.
buy puppets, and instead of rewatching the movies,
Yes.
you're going to reenact them.
Yeah, and we're filming that for the channel. So we are going to be doing that. I'm going to be doing the voices. We're going to be doing sock puppets.
You don't just want to use songs from Mystery Map.
Well, if I can get them. Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Okay, so JB, do you want to do a plot summary or do you want to go straight into things?
I'll do a quick plot
Because
summary.
this was your movie, this was your choice.
So, the Scooby Gang go to some place in America that's a little bit dusty, and chaos ensues where they meet eccentric local Lester, who claims that he has been probed by aliens. Now, Shaggy and Scooby Doo believe Lester, but the gang's a little bit hesitant to take him at his word, so they go back to his apartment where they say that he has pictures, which in actual fact is actually very well done paintings, but pictures they are not. So the gang, Shaggy and Scooby get abducted. There's this funny chase scene. They meet Crystal and Amber, fall head over heels. More wackiness ensues, and it finds out that the aliens are in fact three average, ordinary people. There's some MPs as well, and yeah, yeah, stuff happens.
Thank you for the
That's the
spoilers.
plot. That's the plot.
So in
Spoiling the
terms
20-year-old movie.
so in terms of how it starts, we have the space scene titles. My favorite part of this, I think, is the music. I think it's got a very good sci-fi, but also kind of mysterious edge to it too. JB, is this the part of the movie that draws you in? Is this why it's the one you wanted to watch? What did you think to the start?
I mean, as I've alluded to with my t-shirt, I think it'll be difficult to beat a Doctor Who intro, but this does such a good job setting the tone because it's that mook darkness that I really appreciate, where it sets up that we're not necessarily getting a fun, light-hearted space travel like movie, but just a little like creepy, almost X-Files-esque type thing, which I think is really cool. So it doesn't draw me in. It's not my favorite part of the movie, but I think it sets the tone up quite well. And it also tells a story. Like I really appreciate one that leads into the main plot. So we think that we're just seeing just space stuff to see space stuff, and actually, after the reveal, maybe the actual implications of this is a bit dubious, but on face value, it's a little bit like we, as the audience on the camera POV, are the noise that eventually the three people in the satellite hear, like the station here. So, oh, bonus points.
Sophie, did you like the titles?
Yeah, I think with like these four movies, I think there's really quite the music quite atmospheric and really draws you into the movie. It definitely sets up for a good tone. Um, yeah, it's all right.
Mm.
Space, yeah.
The final
I
frontier.
mean, I watched it yesterday and I wasn't as captivated as probably I had been in the past, but I don't know.
Mm. And Dan, what about you? I know you sometimes skip the titles, but when we said what we liked about them, I did see you nodding.
Yeah, no, I like these titles. I know there's not like traditional music. Normally, if it's just like an instrumental, I will skip them. But no, I think this one does a good job. Like, it really sets up like this alien theme. Like, when I'm watching a film called The Alien Invaders, this is the kind of intro I like. So no, this one gets a thumbs up from me.
Okay, perfect. And As we'd started to allude to, this is one of the Mook animation, and JB, correct me if I've got that wrong.
That's good.
This is one of the Mook animation ones. And I do think the dynamic within the gang's always really different in those ones. So, for example, right from the start here, we have Shaggy driving the mystery machine. I just think character dynamics and things like that are always quite different. And
Is he driving the mystery machine?
it's in my notes that Shaggy was driving the
Oh,
mystery machine.
I must have forgotten that. That's
And obviously, it's normally Fred's baby, so it's interesting to see that he was just relaxing in the back and allowing Shaggy to do that. So I do think that it instantly builds up some different character dynamics. The one thing about the style of this movie that kind of gets me is there's just something about this one that reminds me of Cyber Chase at the start. I don't know what it is. I can't like pinpoint what the features are of it, but I just sit there like wanting to watch Cyber Chase. But I say that because this isn't one of my nostalgic ones. I didn't see this until the first time we reviewed it, I don't think. So I guess I just don't have that like childhood love for it that I
to
know
me that's
JV does.
that's abominable.
So how do you feel about how this movie starts? I know you said you'd not picked up on Shaggy driving, but are you happy to see the Mook animation style again? I feel like we've not seen it for a while.
Well, I think it's good. I don't know. I'm not a purist with a lot of Scooby. It's just I find it very difficult to appreciate when they change the outfits.
Yeah, the outfits in this one, and we'll go around because I feel like we're probably all gonna have some comments here. I think you're either gonna like them or not like them. For me, it was quite a strong no. The pink shorts for Daphne, I didn't like. Liked her shoes, liked her top. Pink shorts, no. I really like the darker shirt for Shaggy. I always think that works well. Didn't like Fred's outfit. There was lots of blue, no white, no orange, just lots of different shades of blue. And Velma's kind of it's the same thing, isn't it? Like with Velma, you're always gonna get orange at the top, red at the bottom. And for all there's nothing wrong with that, it was like the most uninventive thing ever of let's give her a long t-shirt and instead of the skirt, let's have a line in the middle so they're shorts. For me, the outfits of this one were quite close to terrible. JB? Sophie?
Um, I think I would have agreed with you, but I think recently it has changed a bit. But the four movies, they're more adult versions of the gang. I kind of really like how they're still really good friends. Yes, Fred looks like a middle-aged man, but he kind of rocks it. Like, I'm sorry, he kind of, yeah. With Velma, I don't mind her outfit. However, on a close-up, when you can see her full neck and shoulders and no turtleneck, that's sometimes a little bit jarring for me. But the only problem is Daphne's outfit. It's too basic for Daphne. Like, Daphne would never wear that. She needs more.
Yeah, and I just don't ever remember seeing that much pink. If they were purple, I kind of get it. But I think something that you picked up on there is interesting because I do think Fred, especially, looks so much older here, yet he doesn't look out of place from the rest of the gang. But also, when he has his look where he looks younger, he doesn't look out of place either. So it really is like, I guess, true to form that you really can't put an age on these characters. Sometimes they are kind of whatever age we kind of want them to be, I think. Dan, how did you feel about the start of the movie, the dynamics, and the look of the gang?
Yeah, well, I need to preface this by saying I do have absolute nostalgia. So I was 6 when this film came out, and it was the second VHS I owned after Zombie Island, and I became obsessed. And so I've always enjoyed it. I do agree. I always thought it was weird that I thought, and they do lead us to believe that Zombie Island, Witch's Ghost, Alien Invaders all take place at one after the other, and yet in each film they start to like doubt. They're like, "Oh no, there's no such thing as ghosts." I'm like, "But you've already met real like zombies and stuff." So that always confused me. But no, I actually quite like the look of the gang. I think normally for this type of setting in the series, they would never really get a wardrobe change, but it makes sense. Like, why would you in this desert would Fred and Velma especially be wearing jumpers? So no, I don't mind it. I like the way the gang look. I quite like that Shaggy's driving because this is a very Shaggy centric plot, so it kind of subtly gives you a clue right from the beginning that Shaggy's going to be very important.
Yeah, I think it does. I do like seeing that different dynamic. And I think, like you say, the other outfits wouldn't have made sense. There certainly needed to be a change. I think you said, particularly with Fred and Velma, I'd say especially for me, it's Daphne, like tights and heels in a desert don't exactly go. So it would have seemed quite jarring and just wouldn't have made much sense. So I think ultimately they did need to change a look, and it certainly was more fitting, if not, I'd say aesthetically pleasing, but it was certainly purposeful. So I guess kind of getting into the plot, the mystery machine breaks down and the gang split up, which they do a couple of times in this movie, and it does serve the plot quite well. So Daphne, Fred, and Velma are going to investigate the lights in the distance. Hopefully, it's a city and get help. And Shaggy and Scooby are staying with the mystery machine, which I think they do a lot of good characterizations in this. I like how they do this thing where Scooby can like act like a snake, and they don't just leave it at the start. We see it again later on, or the dynamic when there's only one Scooby snack left and stuff like that. I think there's lots of like character development points here, which I do really like. And it's at this early stage where they meet the villains as well. And I do want to get into those, but I also don't want to like be the voice of negativity here. So I'm gonna let JB speak first. What do you think of the villains when they first introduced JBs? I think we start off with their silhouette and then the light shines on them.
Well, I didn't know what you're alluding to in terms of negativity, because I know we've all had our laughs and our jokes that these creatures do in fact look like broccoli. Like I think even we had I think Mark Marsh even asked Joe Sictor if someone that worked on this didn't like broccoli. So there's definitely been some there's been a storyline on this channel about these broccoli monsters, but in my heart of hearts, I did used to think that as a kid, but then I'm like, there's kind of nothing wrong with that. Like, what if on that planet they eat fruit and vegetables and the kids don't want to eat the humans? Like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, there's humany looking vegetables, and they could come over on this world. Oh, this is a planet full of those people. Like this is aliens. Anyone could look like anything. Like, this is what you have to understand. There could be aliens somewhere that look like inappropriate novelty toys, for
What's that
instance.
where your brain goes?
Like, there could be aliens that look like strawberries and cats, like anything you can imagine. So, for all these do look like broccoli, I'm buying it in the world. I prefer this than your bog standard, the greys,
Mm.
these heads, the black eyes, because they're classic, but I'd prefer different design.
See, for me, first time we saw this, I think you were saying, what, aliens can be anything, who knows? However,
Even David
for
Tennant.
the purposes of Scooby Doo, I feel like they're meant to be a little bit scary. We're meant to have the threat level. There's got to be a reason that Lester's terrified of being abducted. And I remember seeing the silhouette the first time I ever watched it. I remember it so clearly. So I remember seeing the silhouette and being like, okay, I get it. And then the light shines on them and I burst out laughing. Like to me, it just didn't set this up well. Like I I like a Scooby movie where you feel some level of threat. Like Zombie Island, terrifying. Witch's Ghost, somewhat terrifying. Absolutely love it. To be laughing at the villain as soon as you see them, I feel just didn't set it up right for me, and that's why I think I didn't get too invested in this movie. I think that's one of the key features. But for me, the villains just didn't tick that box. Sophie, what was your thoughts on, the first time we see the villains?
Um, I never thought of it like broccoli until recently in all the memes. I never got it, but now I do. Um, I don't know. I kind of like them. I think they really work. I think they're unique and they kind of just work for the wacky Scooby villain. Um, I think what lends itself is a colour palette and the depths and the shadow and the characters. I think the close up, yes, it's quite comical, but at the same time with the shading, it does kind of add that scare factor, even though it's not that scary. Um, but no, I do like the villains, but I do understand the broccoli situation now. I didn't before, but now I do.
I think, like you say, I think shading and silhouettes and stuff can be quite powerful. Like, if we think about the villain in Camp Scare when we reviewed that, The Woodsman, when you first see that silhouette of him, it is terrifying, and I absolutely love it. And with this, I was fully on board with the silhouettes. I think, like, when you see the outline of them, the shaping, the size of them, things like that, there is enough to be engaged with. I think for me, I think it was almost just the brightness in the color palette. I kind of associate dark colors with kind of like fear and stuff like that. So I think maybe that's what it was. To me, I was almost getting like Simpsons vibes from the aliens. I don't know why, but that's kind of where my brain went. Dan, what was your thoughts?
Oh no, I love the alien design. I think it's really sort of out there. I love just that bold green alien look. I love the suits they wear. I think that I never ever picked up on the broccoli thing until everyone started mentioning it. And yeah, they kind of do, but I think they look good and they sort of look like what a human could picture an alien as, which spoilers kind of make sense. It looks sort of like, oh, if we had to dress up as an alien, what would we look like? And it would be green, it would be sort of misshapen. So I think it works. I love it on my shirt. I love it on the cover.
Oh, I love
So
that.
yeah, I'm a big fan.
I'd say it almost looks better on the shirt. I think there they've kind of done the colours well and the shading
Mm.
well. So I think, in certain lights, it can work.
I
And
like the rock.
I think, like you said, it's certainly, I think, how people would visualize an alien. You think green, like that's one of the go-to things. So I think it does make quite a lot of sense. And I think at this point is that we get the Jennifer Love Hewitt song as they like kind of run after the gang, and that's kind of how we get into things a bit more.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because I'm ill. I remember this being so much more fitting because it almost seemed high pitched and digitalized where it fit in with the sci-fi theme. I don't know. Like I've got a core memory of that being a lot more sci-fi. I don't know. Like it just sounded a bit more digital and distorted. Now I loved hearing it now. I don't think I've disliked anything Jennifer Love Hewitt's done except for maybe. And even then, I liked Garfield as a kid, but I do like it. It's just I remember it being a little bit more stylized when I listened to it as a kid. But yeah, 10 out of 10. Jennifer Love Hewitt. We go.
I feel horrible. I don't think I've ever disliked anything she's done. I think I'd agree with you from Ghost Whisperer, Client List, Heartbreakers, any project I can list with her in. Generally speaking, really like it. I didn't like this song.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know, like I think for me there's meant to be like some form of like excitement with Scooby music. Like when I think of what's new, I'm really excited and I think Where Are You tries to do that a little bit, but I almost feel like this was so high pitched and happy that I wasn't feeling the threat that they've just ran away from aliens.
Well, yeah, I get that because I was thinking it was more sci-fi to fit in with that. But you're right, actually. In
In a
terms of,
different place of the
yeah,
movie, I maybe would have liked
it's
it.
like our first
And it's
impressions of
not
the
that I don't
alien.
like her, because I love Jennifer Love Hewitt.
Mm.
It just, I think it was maybe the placement, but I appreciate I sound really negative. And Sophie, what's your thoughts?
Not an awful lot. Um, I do like the new take on the song. I think all four of them do a good, like the movies of different versions of Scooby Doo. Yeah, I think I get what you mean. I wasn't blown away by it. It didn't really add anything to the movie. It was nice to hear the theme song, but yeah, it didn't make or break the movie for me.
And Dan, what about you? We're kind of relying on you as the voice of positivity here.
Okay, well, first of all, I do like Jennifer Love Hewitt. I was recently watching I Know What You Did Last Summer the other night,
Mm,
which of course had Fred and Daphne in it as well. But yeah, it's okay. I don't hate it, but I know I love when on Zombie Island when Scooby Doo always starts playing, but I wasn't the biggest fan of the Billy Ray Cyrus one, which is Ghost
mm.
either, or this one. I kind of get what you mean. There's not that sort of I don't know, there's not sort of urgency to it. It's just sort of like, oh yeah, we'll just get someone famous to sing it. I can't even remember how it was inside the chase, but yeah, it's okay. It doesn't take me out of the film. I don't like roll my eyes and think, oh God, here it is. But yeah, it could have been better.
Yeah, I don't know. If I kind of feel like it's a bit of a waste of her. Like, I really like her. If she was voicing a character in this, I'd be
Yeah.
so excited about that. If she was like the voice of like Chris Laura Amber, I'd be like, oh my gosh, did you know that this is Jennifer Love Hewitt? Like, I'd be so happy. I just think it's maybe like the placement. It's nothing wrong with the tone or the pitch. It's just maybe just the placement. But we are about to get to what I think is my favorite part of the movie. Well, second favorite part of the movie, and that's Lester. I think his character is hilarious. I laugh so much at him. Like when he says the line, "Did they experiment on you?" The way in which he says it is
Like he
he's
just wanted to hear the details. He was like just waiting to like memorize everything the gang told him for his extracurriculars to just see the
I almost feel like there was a pitching meeting for this that involved a little bit of alcohol. And this was one of the last things that was pitched. And it was when they're at the bottom of the bottle. And it was like, do you know what'd be really funny? Adding this weird guy that's got this like strange and a little bit creepy and unhealthy obsession with aliens. That'd be really funny. And it's kind of like one of the standout things. Like he doesn't fit with the rest of the theme of this movie. The rest of it's quite serious and serious, somewhat relaxed, and also, very focused on this is a serious matter. But he's just like the comedy gold that actually is the standout for me. JayBee, do you like Lester?
It's just such a weird situation because you think to yourself, like in that sequence in Dottie's diner, when when it cuts to the outside so you can't hear what he's saying, but he's quite clearly doing that type of movement. And it's like, so either one, these fake aliens abducted this poor old man, and Lester was like, oh no, are you gonna probe me? I've heard real aliens probe people. They just kind of take each other out of the room, like, right, listen, lads, one of us is going to have to do it to sell this story. Who's going to take one for the team? Let's draw straws. Oh, God, it's me. I guess I'm going to be the one to probe this guy. Or Lester's that fixated on aliens and being probed. And this was like 20 years ago. If it was when Shooty Gattle was Doctor Who, because I wouldn't mind him probing me. But this was back when aliens looked odd. So this guy's just got some alien kink, or they actually did probe him. It's like, where do you go from there? Like, I can't even fathom it. But I think of Lester, how you all think of Jasper from Legend of the Vampire. Like, he's there, but he just kind of gives me the ick of it.
I disagree. I guess if he gives you the ick, yeah, because I don't like Jasper. I think he's there to be an eccentric character, but
It's just
by the end of it, it's like,
I'm just imagining them
no.
going out of that little set piece, taking off their hats and discussing which one of them is gonna have to do the probing.
Oh, you're saying that it gives you think. I don't know how. Like, I don't find him as anything other than funny. Like, I think that genuinely, if you sat a group of people, like a group of friends, round a table and said, right, you're gonna write something, this is when you get into the bottom of the bottle. This is when the fun ideas start to come out. And I just find it so funny. Dan, do you like Lester?
Yeah, no, I really do. I think I'm glad you mentioned Jasper actually, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, it very nearly could have been a character like Jasper that I would hate, but I don't know. I think they're doing well. I think he is just because in every like sci-fi thing, there's usually that nut job, especially in like a setting like this, who insists that aliens are real. And I love I don't know who voices him, but just does it perfectly. Like I love it. He's like, I got lots of pictures, and that even comes back towards the end. But I do feel bad that like he is telling the truth. He was sort of abducted, but like, and he stuck to his convictions. He very rarely could have just pretended it didn't happen, but he's determined. I'd never thought about the probing thing. I guess he could, when they get arrested at the end, he could launch a complaint against that. Like
Yeah.
that's definitely a criminal offense if they've done that. But no, I love him. I think he's great. I think he's so sweet as well. How he invites the gang back, and he gives the girls the bed and said, "Oh, Fred, you can sleep on the couch." Like he just seems like a nice person, a little nutty, but I think in this sort of environment, he works.
He does. And I think I don't know, I think there's enough there that makes him endearing. Like, I think Jasper is genuinely just a creep. Like, I don't like it at all. He genuinely makes me uncomfortable. Whereas, like here with Lester, it's like, oh, these were the kids' beds. And it's like, oh, so there's actually so much more to his character. Like, you did have a family. Like, what's happened? Where are they? Like, there's so much about him that I'm actually interested in. It's kind of like, oh, well, maybe it's just a bit lonely as well if they've all left. I like him. I genuinely really do. I don't know how he like makes you get the ick of it. Like, I think he's sweet.
I don't know. I don't know. He just seems like the type of guy that would. I don't even want to say.
Sophie, how do you feel about Lester?
You mentioned the movie to me, and he's like one of the main characters I'll think of first. However, I rewatched it again yesterday, and he was brilliant. I can't believe how funny he was. He was absolute comedy gold, and I was like literally belly laughing, like screaming. Um, I love how he brings like the funny side, but also out of the whole movie, he's kind of the creep factor, you know what I mean? Like the rest of the movie isn't that scary, but it's just Lester, and he's got, he's brilliant. I just love him. But like you said, like when he brings the gang back to the house, he's like a really sweet old man. But yeah, he's crackers. I love him. Just yeah, spot
I
on.
would not
Great
stay with
character.
Lester. If you've seen any horror movie ever, no.
No. I think he's scarier than the aliens for me. Like you wouldn't stay there. I would genuinely rather stay with the aliens than with Lester. Like he is a bit creepy, but he's so funny. And I'm kind of surprised at Shaggy and Scooby in this though, because like, they go back to stay at Lester's, and you'd think they know to avoid a villain. If there's one thing we know about Shaggy and Scooby, it's they're not good at it, but they know how, in theory, to avoid a villain. So when the villain is aliens, why would they ever agree to sleep outside? Like, I didn't get that for me. Like, for me, they are clever enough to make that connection of if I'm going to be abducted by an alien, it's going to be outside. I want
Yeah,
to be
but
inside.
it's the beds away from Leicester, isn't it? They have to get through.
I disagree. I'm going to say Lester sleeps out there every night praying that he's going to be abducted again. Like,
Yeah,
I,
imagine like him just there with his trousers down, like abduct me tattooed on his buttocks. Like that's what he does.
like I'm telling you, he goes and lies on them lounges every night. He smiles as he falls to sleep, hoping that he's going to be abducted. Like, that's where he stays. And I'm sure Shaggy and Scooby would have
He's
worked
probably
out.
bought a
I don't
tray
want to
of
be on the
probes
crew.
there. Like, feel free to have your selection if you want to spice it up a bit. Like, he has like a
Oh
toolbox.
my god, you're making this weird. Oh, but it's so strange. Did anyone else have any comments on the Lester's house, where everyone's
Yeah, but
staying, that sort of thing?
like it made sense to me. Like he gave the two girls, he seems like an old school, so he gave the two girls a bed. He gave like the big guy the couch, and maybe a bit like Simone didn't like Scooby in the house. Maybe he didn't want this huge Great Dane just
Mm.
Mm,
that lumbering around the house. He was like, right, you and your owner can just go on the roof. It's warm enough. So it kind
yeah.
of made sense to me.
No, it does. And then Shaggy and Scooby are abducted. So, any thoughts on this scene? Because JB.
Okay, here's the issue. So it was not really an issue. It's just what I've noticed looking back at it as like someone that's a bit older than I was as a kid. So we have that Jennifer Love Hewitt scene at the start, which wasn't a very scary scene, on top of the broccoli thing. And now we've got the first interaction properly of the gang with the aliens, and they just kind of make the aliens look a bit stupid in the first scene. I mean, there's a lot of like, I mean, they do have a chase, but it ultimately does just seem more fun and wacky than anything else. Like, we've got Lester's story, which, if you're not into probing, is scary, it's horrific, it's invasive. But then when Shaggy and Scooby get there, there's no hint of probing, there's no hint of danger, it's just a bit funny. And so it's kind of like if the first two sequences involving aliens it doesn't really add any threat to them, then it's kind of like, well, what is there to fear for the rest of the movie? So I enjoyed the scene, but just thinking about it in hindsight, I'm a bit like, yeah, they've kind of lost all, agency that they are.
No, I agree that there was some problems with the abduction thing. For
Although they
me,
make up for that, sorry, later on with, I think with the MPs, I was actually remember always being more scared of the MPs actually. So
mm,
yeah.
I think for me there is issues with this scene. I think, like you said, the the villains aren't to be taken seriously from the first scene. But for me, I think one of the key problems was more towards the animation. So Sophie might be able to elaborate on this if she's noticed it. If not, it could just be me creating problems. But I didn't think the art style of Shaggy and Scooby fit with the animation of the aliens. So quite often you'd have the aliens in the top corners, like they've just been added in, and then Shaggy and Scooby in the middle that almost looked like a different art style. And it was almost like, the angels in Doctor Who from the episode Blink that can only move when you're not looking at them. It was almost like the aliens could only move when Shaggy and Scooby weren't. So if Shaggy and Scooby were panicking and moving around, the aliens were stood completely still. And then the second Shaggy and Scooby stayed still, the aliens started moving. So it just didn't kind of flow for me on screen.
The angels have the phone box.
So, what was your thoughts on the animation in the scene, but also the scene in general? Just is that something that you picked up on? Did you think the two did mesh in the scene?
I definitely felt a disconnect. I don't think it's different to the rest of the movie. I can't explain why. But yeah, I think I just echo what you said, really. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't remember the first thing that I thought when I first watched it. But now I can see the flaws with it. Just like a fever dream, really, when they're like asleep. Like that's what I class it as now.
Yeah, just kind of like they were dreaming. This didn't
Yeah.
even happen. They sleepwalked. That's how they ended up where they were. But yeah, this could have very well been a dream. Dan, how did you feel about this scene? Do you remember when you first watched it? What your thoughts are in retrospect now?
No, I can't remember. I'm old now. I can't remember when I was 6. But it's okay. It definitely. I know what you mean about the animation. It definitely had a dreamlike quality. I don't know if that was
Mm.
intentional. Like we were supposed to think, did they get abducted or not? I don't know, but I know what you mean. And I don't know. It definitely is more tame when you think of, say, when Sarah Ravencroft is introduced, or when the zombies first attack, or when you meet the werecats. That those are like iconic sort of moments that are quite, even as an adult, you're like, oh. But yeah, this one's sort of maybe the thought because they've already introduced the aliens, they didn't really need that. But yeah, it's okay. It doesn't spoil the film for me, but it's not like, oh my God, I'm scared for Shaggy. Like you say, we all know they're going to escape. They're very good at that.
Yeah, no, I think that's, certainly fair. And um, this does, I mean, Where They Wake Up does introduce, I think, what are perhaps two of some people's most loved characters, Crystal and Amber. I know so many people have so much nostalgia for them and they really love them. And again, it's just I don't have the childhood nostalgia because I didn't see it. But JB, how do you feel about Crystal and Amber?
Yeah, I love them. I love them a lot. I think they're great. I suppose, oh, I'm getting negative just because I'm thinking about stuff that I've just been overdone, but then keeping in mind back then it probably wasn't. I think the way they set it up early on it is lovely, but it is quite surface level of, the main character meets their love interest and they are a female version of that character. So she's saying groovy, there's a lot of similarities, but I think the intrigue around her goes so much more than that. And, tropes like that have been overused, but I think for a reason it works, it's effective. I love them both a lot. And I think Crystal is like one of the first main POC characters. I think she's POC, but yeah, I love them both. I think it's fantastic.
No, it's really good. And Dan, what do you think of Crystal and Amber?
Yeah, I love Crystal and Amber. I don't know, I think she comes across as just so nice and warm. Like if you're going to introduce a love interest for one of the main characters, you want them to be this nice sort of, the reason I didn't like Shaggy and Velma in Mystery Incorporated because I thought Velma was just really mean to him. But no, I liked it. I mean, obviously when I first watched it, I didn't quite grasp the reference. Obviously, she looks like she's from the 60s because the gang were created in the 60s. And I think during the song Groovy, she mentions 1969, which was
Mm.
obviously when it aired. I obviously didn't get that as a kid, but I do like because I think Shaggy's one of the characters alongside Velma who obviously with these newer films didn't really have to change that much, so he still felt like you could still put him in the 60s. So the introduction of this girl, and she's tall and thin like him, she has a dog like him. It did feel like, yeah, this could actually work. So no, I like Crystal and Amber. I hope that they're the two characters that they don't like the new writers try to bring back or anything and ruin. Like I like them in this film. I thought they worked perfectly.
Yeah, they did. And I think, like you say, I think Crystal is absolutely lovely. And as for Velma and Mystery Incorporated, I'd go as far as to say I think she's the worst love interest that we've possibly had. Like the way that she was in that just didn't come across well. And as for the song Groovy, I've got that noted down as an entire topic in and of itself because wow. But Sophie, what do you think of Crystal and Amber?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one for relationships with the gang apart from Daphne. I think if the gang have had other relationships in the past, it hasn't worked, but somehow this was just sweet. I really liked it. Um, I like the character designs, yeah. I think when you mention the movie, these are the two that I think of above everybody else. But yeah, they work. They're not. They're a good addition, I think. Yeah. I mean, I don't love them, but I think they're sweet, especially for Shaggy's arc.
Mm. And I really like where Shaggy's character goes from here. So they go back to the diner. He's not hungry, which we never see from them. I really like the look that they give them when they come out of the bathroom. They've like he's tucked his shirt in, he's done his hair. I think all that's really funny. And it's also around this time that we get the song Groovy, which, like I said, Lester's my second favorite part. This song is my favorite. I think this is the best part of the movie for me. JayBee?
I like it. It's iconic. I would try and sing it, but my throat's too bad for that. So I'm sparing everyone. But one thing I think I've gone has gone a bit underrated is just the love and attention to detail of the animations during that sequence, and the fact that we do actually get to see the gang in their iconic outfits for a bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's delightful.
I kind of like that it is more focused around Shaggy as well, because they could have easily just tied together Scooby and Amber as well. And that's just actually a small part of the song. Like she's even got a doggy for Scooby Doo or something, is it? But like, so yeah, I just really like that it focuses around Shaggy's relationship. It's just so sweet. And I always like when we do get to see more from the characters as well. So yeah, I just really, really like it. Dan, what about you?
Oh, I absolutely love this song. So I remember when I was growing up, like on a Friday and Saturday when you could stay up slightly later than normal because it wasn't a school night. I always, for some reason, even though it's not my favorite, I always used to choose Alien Invaders to watch, and I have very strong memories of just singing along to this song because I knew it off by heart because I'd watched it so many times. I think the animation is great. They do like it is. It's quite different. I love like in the wedding photo, they have the girls as bridesmaids and Fred as best man, and the way the dresses and stuff are animated is quite cool. I love the little nod to when he says, "Even when I'm chasing ghosts," and it's the gang in their original outfits. The reference to 1969. Yeah, I thought, oh, when he opens the pram and there's like, the little mini Shaggy and the little Scoobies, it's just so cute. It's nice. If you like, I think a lot of people have been there when you first fall in love and you begin to picture everything and you think, oh my God, it's just gonna be this perfect fairy tale. And I think Groovy just sums it up. And like, I love how he hasn't known Crystal that long, but he sort of just projects what he wants in a partner. Like when he says, "Oh yeah, she'll cook all my favorite meals for me," it's like, how do you know she can cook? That's just what you want. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was cute, and I did love how like there was always a "don't forget about Scooby Doo." Like you could sort of see, even though she has a dog for Scooby, you could see even in his little uh, dance dream, he knew that Scooby would be a little bit jealous.
Yeah. No, it was so sweet. There was so everything about that song was perfect. I don't think there's anything I would have changed. Like you say, even to the way that things were animated with the wedding and everything. Sophie, how did you feel about the groovy sequence?
It was perfect. It was so sweet. For the lyrics, yeah, that song will be in my head like all the time. Like it's always popping up, and I like sing it from start to finish. Um, I think with embedding the tie-dye, oh, that was beautiful. Just all the little details, the animation, yeah, perfection.
It certainly is. And then for the second time, we see the gang separate ways. So Shaggy and Scooby go back off with Crystal and Amber. And the other three go to see the scientist students that are investigating the aliens. So we start to get a bit of character development from Crystal and Amber. They get turned away by the MPs, I think you am I right in saying, and then they say that they're agents. JayBee, did you ever buy that they were agents? Did you see more to it? Does Amber has like a camera that's meant to be like really like technologically advanced? Like, did that kind of make you suspicious at any point?
Well, the only part that would have made me suspicious if I'd noticed it as a child was all that weird stuff in like the car when Shaggy's going, man, you've got some weird stuff. Like, but the camera I didn't mind. The MPs, I think, whether they're official or not, I don't think I ever paid much attention to it. It's just tangible. Like, these are two big built men that potentially could cause damage. Like, you know and I'm worried about that. So I think they were a lot more imposing and threatening to me. So whether they were official or not, I just know, right, our characters that we care about don't need to mess with these guys, like, because it's just game over.
What about you, Sophie? Did you ever pick up on any suspicious vibes from Crystal and Amber? Were you more suspicious of the MPs? What was your thoughts on these characters?
Didn't think much of Amber and Crystal. I will say, for the MPs, yeah, I think they felt quite threatening. I agree with JB. I think they were probably the most scary part of the movie, but that's saying a lot because in hindsight, they're not that scary. But I think yeah, the fact that they were the most scariest, and if that was the case, well, yeah, it wasn't a scary movie.
No, I'd agree with you that they possibly are the scariest part. Although I'm gonna say, and this is like rushing ahead, but I think there's one other thing that might be scarier than the green aliens for me, and we'll kind of get to that point. But yeah, the MPs I think certainly were scarier than much else in the movie. Dan, what about you? Did you kind of pick up on the suspicious vibes they were trying to like leave for Crystal and Amber? Did you think that the MPs might be the aliens?
I don't think I ever sort of suspected that Crystal and Amber would be like the villains or anything. I knew there was sort of hints, like you said, there's stuff in the back of a car, there's the camera. There was always the fact that they said, "Oh, we're government agents." Yeah, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But yeah, I do concur. The MPs were quite intimidating. I could definitely imagine maybe I did suspect the MPs could be behind it, but yeah, yeah, no, I didn't really have much to say about this particular sort of plot point. It just sort of happens.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. I'm just trying to remember. Sophie, I did ask you before Dan, didn't I? I wanted to like check that I didn't just forget you then. Yeah.
All
Okay,
good.
perfect. So then the gang meet the scientists. I think this is why I'm kind of like going around in a circle because at this point they're just trying to solidify that they've used all the characters, I think. So you see Crystal and Amber again, you see the MPs again, you see the mechanic that's meant to be working on the car again, and you meet the scientist. So for me, it is lots of just let's introduce the characters, let's tick the boxes at this point. Um, Initially on the scientists, I think I'd not thought too much into it. I think because there was three of them, and we only ever see until the very end two aliens together, and I think that was quite a clever thing that they tried to do. I think they were very much like we want to do pairings of two and show two aliens to really throw people off. I think it's interesting that they did that. JayBee, do you remember ever suspecting the scientists at all?
I don't remember if like initially if I ever like, suspected anyone. I think I was too young to remember. Um, I guess though all that I'll say is because we know all the scientists are behind it, it does make it a bit weird the opening when they're all pretending to have heard something. Unless, you know what? No, unless what
Hmm.
they heard was Crystal and Amber arriving.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, I'm an idiot. Yeah, it's all good. Oh, but that guy, that creepy truck guy, I like him actually. He's alright.
They actually do have some good characters here because he really likes flower pressing and gets really excited about that. Like him and Lester are so sweet. I feel like they should be friends after this. Like I really like, I really like them too.
He could be his prober from now on.
Oh, and I don't know. I think for me, the scientists, I just kind of wrote them off as characters. I just don't think we learned anything about them when they were with the gang that made me like, that's what I'm interested in there. Like everyone else has something other than the MPs, that it's like that's why I'm interested. Like
Well, the MPs
the
have
flower
jokes though,
crossing.
don't they? They have
Yeah.
like some snarky banter, like when Shaggy's like, "Tell me, do you have a boyfriend?" He thinks he's speaking to Crystal, and one of the MPs is like, "Actually, I don't." Like they've got like a little bit of back and forth with each other.
Mm.
Whereas the scientists, I like them. It's just they work within a vacuum when they're talking to each other, when they're plotting together. I don't think any of them really have any dialogue with the gang, except for Velma and Steve all of a sudden at the end, they seem to have some like rivalry that's been brewing the whole movie. They have such viciousness toward each other. And it's like this is the first time you're properly interacting, really. Like, what is this? Why does this feel like Sherlock and Moriarty? Like, just
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
stop it.
Um, but Sophie, what about you? Did you ever kind of pick up on anything from the scientists, with the characters that were notable to you at all, or any thoughts?
I think because they're quite basic in terms of the rest of the side characters, probably not, but maybe that should have been the reason why to think they were the culprits. Um, but yeah, I mean, they were playing characters. Like you said, there wasn't much development with them. But the truck guy, I really liked him with the flowers at the end. I will say when they met him in the desert with in Lester's truck, Velma and Daphne riding shotgun, and then Fred was in the back of his truck with like all the paint everywhere. That was so funny. Like that is Fred all over.
Yeah, it was funny. Dan, what about you? Did you pick up on anything with the scientists?
Yeah, so I know normally I'm very against when the films or anything split up the gang, but I think it works in this one. I don't think like as much as it's a Shaggy film, I don't think Daphne, Fred, and Velma seem sidelined. I think the one thing is, I think it's a bit too obvious that the scientists are behind it. Like they obviously try to make that chef or the truck driver like suspicious, but I remember just always thinking, why would they do it? Like, or Dottie the waitress. I'm like, none of these people. And it was very obvious where Velma sees the dried mud on the shoes, and it's like, oh, I think it's fairly obvious. I know, obviously the fact that they're behind it isn't the twist. There is obviously another twist, but I just think if this was handled better in Zombie Island, where you knew Simone and Lena were behind it, but it's more how, why.
Mm.
I do like that Steve is voiced by Mark Hamill. I think I think sometimes when they get Mark Hamill, they waste him. I think this was a decent role for him. So no, like I say, I think it's just a bit too obvious. And I think they act like really like douchey as well. Like I don't know, I never liked them. They seem like those kids at school, like they just sit together and like make fun of other people. So like they don't seem likable at all.
No. And so from there, we kind of get the gang all reunited again, and that's when they find the gold, see the aliens, and we get the aliens are here.
Oh, I love
Place.
that one.
That's the second best song in this movie.
If from outer
But in
space
terms
could
of
not be not
placement,
before.
it's
Oh,
great because, like I said, when we had the Jennifer Love Hewitt rendition of "Where Are You" and stuff like that, it just didn't seem like the right place. This seemed like the right place and the right song. I loved it. So you like it, Sophie? What about you?
Going back to like the opening, it's really spacey and it really like adds like to the atmosphere. Yeah, it's great. Really nailed it on that one.
And what did you think?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, love this song. The placement was fantastic. It felt very old school Scooby. Yeah, loved
Okay.
it.
And I think I might need some clarity on this point, JB. So at this point, I believe there's three aliens instead of two, and they're unmasked as the students. How is it the MPs end up in there?
they're like the guns for hire now. They're like the muscle.
Okay, so they're then brought in. They all kind of seem to somewhat kind of go to not necessarily attack the gang, but go after the gang.
Yeah.
At which point, Crystal and Amber come in to defend them. It feels like a complete free for all. And that's when we find out Crystal and Amber are aliens. For me, they look scarier than the aliens that were the villains. But I could just be the only one that thinks that because I don't think they were trying to make that the
Well,
case. I think they were meant to be endearing aliens, and I just was terrified by them.
I don't know if this is telling to me, but I was attracted to Alien Crystal as a kid.
Okay.
No, I mean that I
I don't
wasn't.
expect much less
No,
from
no,
you,
no,
to be
no, no. Like I just
honest.
say I wasn't scared, but I was like, oh my gosh, okay, that's something that I could not. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree.
How did you both feel that Crystal and Amber were animated as aliens, and how do you think it compared to the aliens that we got as the villains? Sophie?
I think with Amber, like with the broccoli men, um, they're not like your stereotypical like what you think an alien like the big head and the eyes. I know Crystal is, but I kind of like the animation. They've got like the bubbles like going up and down. That really makes it kind of like alien and more like translucent. And I think I could be completely wrong, but was this like the last cell animation Scooby Media thing? If
Yeah.
so. They like nailed it. Really impressed by that part. But I don't think I was overly impressed by the designs, but it worked and I kind of liked how it all unraveled at the end. So yeah.
And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, I love how they go about the reveal of Crystal and Amber because obviously the audience finds out first because when Shaggy and Scooby are defending the girls, like Crystal and Amber transform behind the scare off the other characters, and then later Shaggy and Scooby are the last to find out again because obviously the gang witnesses them, and like Velma has to be like, that's Crystal and Amber. I loved the designs. Actually, I loved Crystal's design. Like Sophie's mentioned, I loved how she was sort of like translucent. She had like stuff inside her, and I also love how she was like a humanoid, and when Amber transformed, even though she can talk, she was more of like an alien animal. Like it made sense that when they came to Earth, Crystal would be the human and she would be the dog. So I thought that was quite clever. I thought they looked unique. They looked less like what a human would think of an alien.
I really liked, I think in particular, Amber's animation. I think that one was kind of, I don't know, the most inventive, but also worked quite
That
well.
was a question that I had. That clearly both Crystal and Amber in their like natural forms are both different species. Whether they're native to the same planet or not, I guess we can assume that they are. But I was thinking that when Amber turned into their alien self, they seemed to have a lot more intelligence and sentience than a dog, which obviously I love dogs. I do think dogs are a lot smarter than people think. But I almost thought that given the intelligence shown by Alien Amber, it was. I almost wonder if that alien behind the scenes would have been a little bit degraded if they found out the status of what a dog is in terms of being a pet. Because I couldn't imagine Amber is Crystal's pet on their planet. But yeah, it's just always seemed odd to me that clearly this alien had sentience and yet they were just a pet in terms of human form stuff.
I think you may be simplifying that too far because I think at that point as well, then you're comparing Scooby to being Shaggy's pet, which I don't think is ever the case. It's his best friend.
That's a good point.
So I think maybe that's kind of more what they were going for.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
But yeah, so
I have another question as well,
okay.
actually, because my mind has been blown today when I realized that the three scientists weren't just being goofy, they were genuinely hearing Crystal and Amber. So when the Mystery Machine encountered that UFO at the start, it looks gorgeous, right? It's like a manta ray, but it's got stuff shining down on them. And I always thought it was a bit bizarre that it was revealed that the alien spaceships was like a saucer with a plane on top, a helicopter. So were they trying to make it seem like the helicopter was what the gang saw at the start, or was the gang seeing Crystal and Amber's ship?
I think they were seeing Crystal and Amber because
I
it's a
think they're saying
different
Crystal
shape.
Amber.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Because I always
But
thought, well, there's no way that helicopter thing is what the gang saw, but I love
I
that.
have got so many issues with that helicopter. There has got to be a cheaper way to keep people out of the area while you get some gold than spending what must have been millions, but like spending millions on a helicopter, then the setup of where the aliens take them and the alien costumes. Like, there has got to be an easier way. Like, all the money that they would have made from the gold went on this
So
helicopter.
that being said, they could have sold all that stuff afterwards, no?
They could, but then how do you surely there's going to be questions as to why you've got an alien helicopter by
Well, no,
whoever's buying it.
they could just get rid of the saucer. That saucer maybe cost about 80 quid and
What
sell
world, JB? What world is that going to be
get
80
100
pounds?
quid and just sell the
Oh
copter
my gosh.
and then sell this alien set to like Docky U or something. X-Files. Hmm?
Quite. So at that point,
Sell it to
so
Leicester.
everything's resolved nicely. Lots of kind of just final interactions. Crystal and Amber, explain they need to go home. Long distance relationships don't work, all that sort of thing. And that's the movie. So,
Well, I think
JB,
you've skipped over.
what have I skipped over? Please do.
So, the scene where Crystal and Amber leave, I think, is one of the saddest scenes in Scooby history. And I think what's underrated about that is the score. Like the music that plays in the whole sequence is absolutely gorgeous. Like when I sit down and deep it, that scene is up there for me as that, two far out peas and a two crazy peas in a far out pod or whatever from 2002. It is such a good sequence. It's just I always don't like, and this is my issue with Curse of the Lake Monster as well. Like all of these Scooby movies, for all some of them do connect and whatnot, ultimately the status quo does need to be reset at the start of the next film more often than not. And so I just don't understand why we couldn't have had a situation where Shaggy and Scooby decided to go along with Crystal and Amber, or it just seems like such a nothing point that long distance relationships don't work. Like maybe on Earth, right, when like some people need to take 24 hours on a plane to go to Australia, or they need to drive from one side of America to the next, but these people literally have light travel to go into a different solar system. It's like, well, what's long distance for an alien? Like, and why does it have to be long distance? Just go. I would go with them.
Yes, but JB, if you didn't have ties to a location, it's not a long distance relationship, it's just a relationship you move. Shaggy and Scooby have friends, family, lots of things tying them to one location. Yes, every Scooby movie resets. It's very rare there's a correlation between any of them, but they don't ever push the envelope so far that it can't be theoretically reset. Ultimately, the way every one of them is resolved is the gang are together and they're on to the
I
next.
mean, I
And that way
understand
it
why
makes
they do
sense.
that as far as the Scooby snacks cause an argument and we're resetting it. Just I just wish that they were able to dwell in some somberness a bit more, like some reflection, because I think it was good, and to end up with just bickering seems a bit, to cheapen the moment a bit. Like I understand why, because it's like a family viewing, you don't want to leave the kids traumatized. It's just, I feel like there was a lot of potential there that if it was built for an older audience like Zombie Island, they could have just, I don't know, just given us a bit more of a lasting moment.
Mm,
And that's
mm.
my piece. That's my piece.
Well, it's time for you to have your piece because you always go first. This was your movie. Is it a smash or a pass?
I love it. It's one of my favorites. I think it's quite underrated. I think people, because it's one of the ones that is polarizing. Like you can be a Scooby fan and watch everything Scooby, but you could also look at the words Alien Invaders, and there are people that, for good reasons and whatnot, don't like sci-fi stuff. And so I think a lot of them look at this, they don't want to watch it or they haven't watched it. So I think it's one of the underrated ones, but I love it and I'm smashing it.
Mm. I would like to apologize to Dan's t-shirt before I speak because it is a great t-shirt. But like I said, I'd not seen this movie, so it's not like I've got childhood nostalgia that's gonna kind of carry it for me or anything. I think when you look at Mook animation movies, for me, there's like Zombie Island, and I remember like the terror of finding out the monsters were real, and then it's oh my goodness, the people that you thought were the good guys are the bad guys, and the people you thought were the bad guys are the good guys, and mind blown. Same with when Sarah Ravencroft came out of the book, and when the two iterations of the gang come together in Cyber Chase. For me, they are all iconic moments. And short of maybe the song Groovy, I just don't feel like this movie has anything that kind of puts it up there with them. I love Lester and I love Groovy. Short of that, I actually don't like this movie and it's a pass. Sophie, what about you?
That's insane.
Dun, dun, dun. Um, I think when I was younger, I didn't really care for this movie, okay? However, after watching it recently, over the years and whatever, I do really like this movie. It's not scary. I probably do like my Scooby movies more on the scary side, but it's such a sweet, wholesome movie, and it's definitely like Scooby, like classic Scooby. But like with these four movies, there's definitely a big twist to it. I mean, I do really like the songs in it. I think, we touched on that. The gang is split up in this movie sometimes. However, they do it correct. Like there's even amounts, and when they are split apart, they come back together and then they go off again. They're not like gone for the whole movie and then at the very end they're together. And I like that. I kind of like how they're not always together. Like they can do their own thing, and it just works. The side characters, Lester, brilliant, like comedy gold. And it's a feel good movie. I'll go back to the end with when Crystal and Amber goes. I'm not one for like romantic and soppiness. I think the most emotion I showed was towards Fred when he burst into tears. That was where I got
Oh.
emotional. Like Fred, no. But no, I do now love this movie. Not my favorite, but yeah, definitely a smash on this one.
Okay, perfect. And Dan, what about you?
Yeah, so like I've said, I definitely do. I can acknowledge I do have childhood nostalgia for this, but no, but even viewing it today, I still like it. It's definitely a step down from Zombie Island and Witch's Ghost. I do think they sort of softened it slightly. Um, but I still think it's fun. I do agree that the villains with the helicopter, I never understood that. I never understood how that worked. Still don't. But I've always accepted that the villain's plans, they weren't really supposed to be the twist. It's just something that happened. I loved the Crystal and Amber reveal. I liked the end scene. I think it is quite fairly iconic. I see it on my Facebook quite a lot where it's like, we all cried at this scene as a kid or something, and it's that scene of them saying goodbye. Um, yeah, I loved Fred getting all emotional. That was cute. No, I really like this. I love the characters. Like I think like Dottie the waitress and Lester, and they feel like that sort of alien town stereotypes. No, so I think overall it is good. Like I say, it isn't as good as what came before it, but I think it's still a solid entry. And like Sophie's mentioned, they do split up, but it's like Shaggy and Scooby are not by themselves. That's usually what annoys me, but Shaggy's actually with someone else. So I think that helps. So no, this definitely gets a smash from me, 100%.
Okay, perfect. So almost unanimous smashes.
Yeah, you ruined it.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay though. Like they can't all be winners. They can't all be winners. But yeah, that
I
concludes.
shouldn't let you wrap this up because you're going to be negative. I already know what you're going to say.
You do as well, yeah.
Okay, so that is this week's review.
Yeah, wait,
Obviously,
wait.
these haven't been quite as consistent as normal because, I think it's fair to say that most people in the UK seem to have been ill over the
Yeah,
last
my
few
voice.
weeks.
I sound manly.
So hopefully we'll do a few more of these on a bit more of a consistent basis, although not 100% sure what that's going to look like, but we look forward to it and what that will be because certainly these are always so much fun and it's just good sometimes to sit us four and discuss Scooby. Obviously the guests are great and interviews are great, but sometimes it's just about this sitting and discussing Scooby. And I always have so much fun doing it. So, thank you so much both of you for joining. Thanks to everybody for listening. Dan, where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me online at danpad94 on Twitter and Instagram.
Okay, perfect. And Sophie?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Scooby Doo for life.
Okay, perfect. So all of those links will be in the description below, as long as along with our links as well. And please do stick around on the I was gonna say on the content on the channel for more content.